All right, y'all, what's going on? Welcome to the Monday Night Live stream. Put a 1 in the chat if y'all can hear me clearly. And definitely let's like the stream. Let's hit that like button. You know what I'm saying? Getting the numbers up. We're gonna have a good one tonight. And I got some news about some exciting, not so new, but kind of new endeavors that I've been personally engaging in, and I want to talk about specifically training. Okay, so there's a few things that I want to tackle tonight. There's going to be training methods, training modalities, meaning training tools, the efficacy that each one has to offer, whether it be body weight, resistance bands, conventional weights like barbells. Then I'm going to get into supplementation. Okay, most supplements are not really going to do you any good when it comes to gaining strength and muscle mass, but there are a few that do benefit you, and I want to talk about those few. Okay. And then I want to touch on mindset. All right. So logistically, right, it's very important to frame things up mentally to be the most beneficial for you, right, as far as that training and whatnot is concerned. All right, so let's see here. Is my chat working? Can y'all? What's going on here? I don't see anybody. I don't see any comments popping up in the chat. So I'm gonna have to move over to my Discord to see if y'all got anything popping up there. I don't see anything popping up in Discord. So let's see. Maybe YouTube chat is not quite working. But that's all right. We're going to make do with it. Also, if y'all want to pop on for a Q&A at the end, let me know. We can do that as well. All right. Yeah, because I didn't see any ones or anything pop up in the chat. So I see y'all watching in here. But I'm not seeing. All right. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, they coming up late. Now I see. Hear you loud and clear. Kelly White, what's going on? Welcome. Good to see you here live in the stream. Yes, yes. All right. And then, of course, I got the soothing sounds of the water running. You know what I'm saying? Because we gotta create the vibe. Folks, we got to create the vibe. So I'm labeling this as the official Monday Night Live. It's not really the first Monday Night Live, but I'm making an executive decision to mark it down as such. So let's get into training. Training efficacy and training modalities. And covering the basics, right? So people tend to come to me a lot to talk about nutrition, specific raw vegan or high raw vegan nutrition, right? And the strategies of that. All right. But I cover not just nutrition, but also what you do with your nutrition, right? And that whole part is extremely important, and people tend to downplay the importance of it, right? And you really can't do that, or it's a mistake to do that. Right? And the reason why is because if you have certain health goals, let's say getting to your ideal weight, or, you know, let's say reversing a chronic illness, whether it be liver disease, kidney disease, whether it be some type of heart issue, a nerve issue, you know, a thyroid issue, things like this. Your exercise and training is extremely important because of how it affects your nervous system, right? Driving elbow drop to the like button. True. What's going on? Ron, good to see you in here. So your training or resistance training is not just to build muscle tissue, right? It's to train your entire nervous system. okay? The nervous system that controls every single aspect of your physiology. It's not just simply to just build muscle and lose weight and look good. It goes far beyond that. The degree that you train the muscular infrastructure even affects your ability to learn, right? So like, let's say, for example, you are studying for a degree, bachelor's, master's, or you're writing a dissertation for a PhD, you need to do research, whatever the case is. Implementing training, let's say you do resistance training or something like that, something highly stimulating to your nervous system, like resistance training, before studying or doing research actually boosts your brain's ability to retain information. Okay, so training in and of itself increases your ability to learn and retain information, right? When you train your nervous system, there's all this spillover where you affect all kinds of things, right? It improves your liver function. Training, interestingly enough, you know, resistance training, building muscle, it's actually very inflammatory. That's the interesting thing. So while you're training, your body goes through like acute forms of inflammation very locally inside your muscle tissue. But when you're done training, your body switches drastically to combat inflammation and drive inflammation down. And then the side effect of training is actually anti-inflammatory in a way where the training boosts your immune system and your nervous system function, further driving down oxidative stress. Right? It's almost like fasting, kind of, because fasting is also inflammatory, which is the reason why, you know, in the beginning of your fast, once you're over your first 22, 24 hours and you're in 36 hours, it's inflammatory going without food, right? Because there's oxidative stress on your fat cells, for example, and your fat, your actual body fat. Fat is like an organ of the human body, right? And it's important to view fat that way. Fat is not necessarily just a fuel source. Fat isn't necessarily, it's an essential part of your body, right? Your body's ability to store fat. And when you oxidize fat cells, right, that still classifies as oxidative stress, right? Burning fat is an oxidative stress process, and that can be inflammatory because you're driving down your body's energy storage. And you're doing it in such a dramatic way. When you do resistance training, you are burning through so much stored glucose that it kind of alarms your body. And there's all of these metabolic and hormonal processes that kick in that kind of save your blood sugar level from crashing through the floor and collapsing and then sending you into a coma, right? So there's a lot on the line when it comes to training. It's not just working muscle. So your diet is the substrate, and then you stack everything else on top of it, right? There's different ways to go about resistance training, especially when it comes to building muscle. Now, building muscle is going to increase your body's ability to be insulin sensitive. So when you engage in exercise, you build muscle, your body develops more motor neurons, more neurotransmitters, right? More infrastructure, more nerve endings, right? It fleshes out your nervous system, new nerve endings and all types of stuff. Your body builds all of these new satellite cells and things. And all of this requires glucose to function. So that means that the demand for glucose on your body increases as you build out this infrastructure. Even like getting more intelligent as a person, learning more information, improves your brain chemistry. And when you create all these motor neurons and neural pathways in your brain and throughout your nervous system, essentially what happens is your threshold, your capacity to use glucose for energy increases. You get more mitochondria on the cellular level. And your mitochondria is it's an energy factory, right? So you have these little mitochondria all over your cells, and they convert glucose into usable energy like ATP, which is adenosine triphosphate, right? Let me know if I'm speaking over your head right now. This is kind of complex stuff. I'm not trying to get too deep with it, but this is stuff that we need to know. This is framing. I'm telling you all of this to for framing, because a lot of people think, oh, just resistance training, it's a thing that you can do, but you don't need to. No, you need to, actually. And there's not really much of a reason to avoid doing it because of all the benefits it brings, right? If your goal is to get to a healthy weight, one of the best things that you can do is increase your glucose consumption threshold, okay? If you have a low level of lean mass, that means that your threshold for how much food you can consume, how much glucose you can consume, decreases. And then you're more predisposed to obesity and insulin resistance. You build more muscle, you build out your nervous system more. What happens is now your demand for glucose increases, and a side effect of that is improved insulin sensitivity, right? So this helps to dig you out of diabetes. So if you're diabetic, one of the best things that you can do is not insulin, but resistance training, right? So that increases your threshold. Now, if you can increase the threshold from how much glucose your body uses, you then also increase the threshold for how much glucose your body can store inside your lean tissue, which means that your body is less predisposed to store that glucose inside your fat cells because your lean cells need it more, right? So the more lean mass you have, your body, instead of driving that glucose to get stored inside your fat cells, it's going to be more prone to storing it inside lean tissue, right? Your body's going to be more prone for your brain to use it, for your muscle mass to use it, that type of thing. And so that means less glucose to go inside your fat cells, which means that your chances of gaining unnecessary body fat significantly decreases as a result. This is the important, right? So this is how you get out of obesity. This is how you get out of type 2 diabetes, and you stay out, right? So if you have any type of metabolic disorder, fatty liver disease is a big one, type 2 diabetes, even type 1 diabetes, right? Any type of, autoimmune disease, right? One of the best things you could do if you have an autoimmune disease is actually strengthen and balance out your immune system by resistance training. If you're just sitting with your body parked up and you're not fleshing out your infrastructure, your lean mass, and your nervous system, your immune system becomes very erratic, right? Because it's not being used in a proportionate way. You have to train your immune system. You train it. And one great way to train your immune system is by training, resistance training, for example. This is the reason why athletes typically get sick or get viruses or infections much less, because their immune system is much better trained than your average person. All right? Your body handles oxidative stress much better than your normal unconditioned person. Right? So if you wanted to take yourself to like borderline super physiological levels, resistance training is essential at doing that. If you want to be peak intelligence, right? You want to be a more sophisticated, healthier, more durable person, resistance training is essential for that. So that's my little prelude of going into the importance of resistance training before we start talking about how to do it. Well, let me catch up with y'all in these comments first. Deanna Bryant, what's going on? That's why they say, don't lose it. Don't use it, you lose it. Yes, absolutely. Wow, I never knew that. Resistance training for diabetes. Yeah, absolutely. It's a big deal. Yvonne Berry, what's going on? How you doing? Good to see you in here. Oh, actually, Deanna Bryant, I see you in the comments on a couple of my shorts. What's going on? Good to see you in here. So the reason why I say, I'm going to talk about this tonight. So I joined a gym last Friday. I haven't been in a gym since March of 2021. So it's been a couple of years since I've been out of the gym. I haven't been in a gym, touched any kind of conventional weights, dumbbells, barbells, anything like that. I haven't done anything like that in a couple of years. It's just been body weight and resistance bands. And I've been able to maintain and build new lean mass and feel great just using body weight and resistance bands, right? So I have developed a bias towards resistance training with resistance bands, right? To a degree where I had come to prefer it over conventional weights. But I decided, you know what? What I don't want to do is get so used to the stimulus of resistance bands that I lose the conditioning that I developed for working with conventional weights. So I said, let me get back in the gym and retrain my body to deal with conventional weights and optimize for that. Because I want to have both, right? I want to be really good with the resistance bands, the conventional weights, the body weights. I want to be more well-rounded. Okay, I don't want to just lose one skill set and to pursue another. I don't really want to do that. So I go back into the gym, and I did a live stream that Friday where I was on TikTok live, basically doing my workout live, right? And one of the interesting things, and I had my resistance bands with me too, so I trained with conventional weights and the resistance bands together. So my training format was, my first exercise is going to be using resistance bands to target a particular muscle group before I use it in a compound movement. When you look at different exercises that you do in your resistance training, they usually fall into like two categories mainly: a compound movement and an isolation movement. Compound movement implies an exercise that uses multiple joints. So for example, if you do a squat, you're going to be using your hip joint, your knee joint, and your ankle joint. So it's 3 joints that you're using, right? If you do a deadlift, that is where you're going to be using your shoulder joint, your hip joint, kind of your knee joint, and your ankle joint, right? But it's a hip dominant exercise. Bench press, you're using the shoulder joint, the elbow joint primarily, right? And then of course your scapula works as well, right? So scapula, shoulders, shoulder girdle, elbows, etc., right? Retraction, protraction, that type of thing. So it's multiple joints, at least 2 joints, right? So I started off hamstring curls, and that's basically you work in 1 joint, okay, and that's the knee. Single leg hamstring curls, and I did about 20 or 30 reps or so. Basically training, just keep doing the leg curls just to really activate and really work that hamstring. All right. And I went for about like 30 reps or so, 30 and change. And I wanted to really work the muscle till I felt like a burn. Right. And I want to really get deep into the burn training that muscle. And then I stopped. The reason why I chose to start off with hamstring curls first is because your hamstring, you train your hamstring from 2 points, okay? Because your hamstring is actually a combination of 2 muscles. Part of your hamstring is an assisting muscle that assists your glutes in hip extension. So let's say this right here is your hip. Your glutes drive the hip extension, but your hamstrings assist your glutes in driving your hips forward, right? And then your hamstring at the bottom flexes your knee. So let's say this is the top portion of your leg, your femur, and then the bottom portion, your tibia, right? And then you basically kick back the leg at the knee. Essentially what happens is the hamstring is going to be activated at the bottom, the insertion at the knee, and that flexes your hamstring. So basically I combine the leg curls and the deadlifts. So the leg curls train the hamstring at the knee, and the deadlifts train the hamstring at the hip. Right? So this is a full hamstring activation and training of that particular muscle. It usually takes like 2 exercises to train a particular muscle group. That's typically all you really need is 2 exercises to train a given muscle group. So I start off with that. And what I realized when I got to the barbell, and I did barbell Romanian deadlifts, which means Romanian deadlift is kind of a stiff-legged deadlift, and this is where the barbell doesn't touch the ground, right? So you never come to a full dead stop the way that a conventional deadlift would be. I was kind of shaky, slightly wobbly, a little bit more wobbly than I would like to. And that's basically instability. Now, my form in the deadlift was not bad, but I can noticeably feel the instability. And the interesting thing too is I felt the bottom portion of my lats work a lot more. I felt my grip work a lot more. I didn't really feel my hamstrings all that much. That's interesting. I felt like the conventional lifts worked the targeted muscle a lot less than resistance bands does. This is important to note as far as the stimulation, right? So just follow me here because I'm going to go and explain why these two things are important. So with the deadlift, I'm feeling all these muscles, right? I'm feeling my entire upper back, my mid back, my lower back, my glutes, my hamstrings. I'm feeling my grip, my forearms, and all this type of stuff working, right? Back of my shoulders, my traps, everything working. And it is firing so many different muscles. And the interesting thing is with resistance bands, you feel these same muscles, but the thing is that it's much safer. So if I do deadlifts with the resistance bands, I don't have to worry about hurting my back because all of the resistance is placed on the muscle in its strongest position, right? So when I'm doing a deadlift with resistance bands, I don't really feel it hitting my lower back that much. So I don't got to worry about like hurting my lower back or something like that when I'm working with resistance bands because it doesn't place that much tension on your lower back. Okay. I don't really feel much in my grip because it's not a conventional weight. I'm not pulling against the band with my hands that much. And then I don't feel much in my upper back either. So all of the tension is put on my hamstrings and my glutes. It's a very localized, targeted exercise. With the barbell, it's a hell of a lot different. It's actually entirely different. Now the thing with the barbell, I get more muscle activation from the resistance band than the barbell because the barbell didn't particularly feel heavy on my glutes and my hamstrings. They didn't really particularly feel heavy at all. If anything, it felt weird because of the little shakiness and the instability. What I did feel that it worked the most was my lower back and my mid back. That's where I felt it worked the most. I wanted to target my glutes and my hamstrings, but I actually felt more of my lower back and my mid back. Very interesting, okay? Because the conventional weights puts all of the resistance on your muscles when they're in their weakest position. This is a game changer. It's very important to understand. If all of the tension is placed on your muscle in its weakest position, this significantly increases the chances of injury. There's a lot more risk. It's a massive game changer because there may be a lot of benefit from using conventional weights, but the risk, people hurt themselves a lot doing deadlifts and stuff. When you're doing something for longevity and health, you have to mitigate risk. It's a big part of the calculus, at least for me. Mitigating risk. I do this in diet plans. I do this in training routines. I even do this in fasting strategies. You want to mitigate risk because what we're looking for is efficacy and sustainability, right? And that's a big part of coaching that's so important, right? So people aren't getting messed up and whatnot under my guidance because I'm mitigating risk. Even if we have to reduce the rate of weight loss or muscle gain. I would rather you get progress a bit slower than faster, but take on a lot more risk. Safety first, right, as they say. So I move on from the deadlifts and I do it, which is pretty interesting because I started actually with what? What did I start with? I started with 225 pounds. I don't know how smart that was for me to do that, but I did it. Put 225 pounds on the bar and cranked out like, I don't know what, 9 reps or something like that, something along those lines. And the reason why it felt so weird is because, well, I haven't deadlifted, especially not 200 something pounds in a couple of years. So coming fresh in the gym, my first set doing deadlifts, with the barbell, and I put on 200 plus pounds. So I'm like, this is interesting because I haven't touched the weight in forever. I ain't really lost much strength. It just felt awkward. So what this tells me is that with the resistance bands, I was still able to maintain and retain my strength, even though I haven't lifted a barbell in years. This is a testament to the validity of training with resistance bands. Now I move on. I get my thick orange resistance band. I tie that to the rack, right? The power rack. And I do a quadricep activation exercise. And this is where I bend my knee about 45 degrees. So let's say this is the barbell rack, and I tie the band to the barbell rack. The other side of the band is a loop, and I put my leg in, and the loop pulls against the back of my knee. So it's pulling my knee towards the power rack. And I have to pull my knee back away. So what I do is that if my knee is bent because the band is pulling my knee towards the rack, I then flex my quadricep to extend my knee against the band. So this is the way I activate my quadricep. Now, if you are really just trying to focus on the knee extension, you don't necessarily need to sit down on a machine and do the conventional knee extensions. I wouldn't even really use that machine now. This exercise, I'm actually able to stand flat-footed, dig my heel into the ground, and extend my knee forcefully against the band, activating my quadricep. And I did the same thing with that as I did with the hamstring curls and the resistance band. Really, really working the quadricep in a very concentrated fashion. Then I slapped 185 pounds on a barbell and did back squats. First set, 185 pounds, right? And again, the back squat, it felt weird, awkward, right? I felt like I had to put a lot more effort into balancing the weight on my back. And the barbell was just tearing into my traps on my neck. And I was like, man, this is only 185 pounds. And I feel like this bar is cutting into my traps like never before. It's insane. The weight did not feel heavy on my legs at all. The interesting thing is the weight actually felt fairly light. It felt light on my legs, but it felt heavy on my back. So this is a testament again to the resistance bands, because when I do legs with resistance bands, I get all of the muscle activation, and it works the muscle so hard, but I don't feel it at all in my joints. So my muscle is stimulated like nobody's business. And I can go completely to failure and crank out every last rep with resistance bands, and I don't have to worry about getting injury or collapsing underweight because it's a resistance band. So it's almost risk-free, if not completely risk-free. It's amazing. But anyway, so I do these two, and just 2 exercises per muscle group. So leg curls and deadlifts for my hamstrings, done, right? Knee extensions with the band, single leg, and the barbell back squat for my quadriceps, done. And for my glutes, the deadlift and the barbell back squat are glute dominant. So I'm working my glutes with those too. Now, usually if I just do a leg workout with just resistance bands, my glutes are unimaginably sore. I didn't get that this time. In this workout, I mostly was sore in my quadriceps, not even really my hamstrings. I'm usually more sore in my glutes and my hamstrings when I use resistance bands. So like for women, the reason why I'm big on women using resistance bands in their lower bodies is because resistance bands are perfect for building your butt. If you're a woman and you're really trying to build out your hamstrings and your glutes, doing your leg days with resistance bands is a game changer, period. Okay, and if you're one of these people where like you got a little bit of a loose booty, you can't really activate your butt, resistance bands will get you there. And if you got knee pain and all of this type of stuff, resistance bands will definitely get you there. All right, big difference. And then of course I did abs, hanging leg raises, just a body weight exercise. Fair enough, right? And then I got like this vicious abdominal cramp, so I wasn't able to do the wood chops like I wanted to, but you know, I don't even know what that's about. That abdominal cramp lasted for so long. And I think it's because when I was doing those leg curls, I was squeezing my abs so hard. To the point where I got a massive cramp afterwards. Because my goal, one thing resistance bands has trained me to do, is to actively create that mind-body connection where I can fire a muscle intentionally in my mind and really squeeze and contract a muscle super, super hard, because resistance bands train you to do that in a way that conventional weights don't. Because with conventional weights, you can't create this really, really hard contraction, right? So like, for example, if you because the thing is with a conventional weight, if you go and you create a massive contraction, you just move the weight quicker, and then you lock out, and that's it. There is no other. That's it. You're done. But the resistance band's always pulling against you. So the more you pull against the resistance band, the more it pulls against you. So it forces you to recruit more muscle fibers and contract that muscle. It's a fight. Every rep is a fight, because the band pulls against you more than you pull, like just as much as you pull against it, right? So it's kind of like if you were doing bicep curls and you had a person grabbing your wrist and they were pushing down on your arm and you're pulling back doing a bicep curl against them, that would actually work your biceps way more than you lifting a dumbbell, right? So just imagine you got somebody and they're pulling down on your wrist and you're curling your wrist back and you're fighting against them to really curl your muscle. You contract that muscle. It trains your nervous system to actively be able to contract a muscle harder and harder and harder and harder. Here's why that's important. Muscle growth is directly correlated to how hard you're able to contract a muscle. Okay? The harder you contract a muscle, the more muscle fibers you recruit. This is very important on a cellular level. This is explosive when it comes to your nervous system. All right? The harder the contraction, the more glucose you use. The harder the contraction, the more you activate your nervous system. All right? The harder you contract, the more your mitochondria has to work to convert glucose into available energy. Your metabolism has to meet the needs of those extreme muscle contractions. Big time. So it's an effort thing, right? And that effort is heavily rewarded in the human body. So it's kind of like if you push against or you pull against an immovable force hard enough, you get lightheaded, right? If you do it hard enough, you get lightheaded, you do. Or it's kind of like if you breathe hard enough or you yell as loud as you can, and you yell hard and loud for as long as you can, as hard as you can, you get lightheaded. Because the thing that allows you to yell is muscular contractions. Really what it is, muscular contraction and nervous system activation. Muscles work the same way. This is the reason why I can work with resistance bands and get deep into a set, and I'll check my heart rate. My heart rate would be like 135, 140, something crazy. Because my nervous system is lit up like a giant Christmas tree at the Rockefeller Center, right? So what happens is I'm burned through my glycogen stores in my muscle like nobody's business. So my body has to move heaven and earth to dip into my fat storage and start using my stored fat in my body to convert that into glucose to further power my body, so my blood sugar levels don't drop too much, because if my blood sugars drop too much, I pass out. So my body now has to work to guarantee and make sure I do not pass out. All right? Now, why did I choose to pursue this method where I combine resistance bands and the conventional weights? The resistance bands train a muscle very locally. It's very good for targeting a particular muscle that you intentionally want to work. Conventional weights, like those barbell lifts, they target every single muscle in your body. So you get more nervous system activation throughout your entire body overall, and that creates a dramatic hormonal response. We're talking more growth hormone, more brain-derived neurotropic factor, more adrenaline, okay? Because lifting conventional weights, it kind of puts you in that fight mode where your adrenal glands are going to kick on massively. And so now this is going to cause you to burn more stored glucose in your muscle tissue, and then primes your body to dip into your stored fat. Now, this is amazing because my metabolism, my heart rate was elevated for hours after that workout. It was fascinating to watch. I would look at my watch and I'm like, damn, my heart rate is in the 90s. I'm just sitting here. I'm not even doing anything. I'm just sitting here. My body burning all type of crazy calories, burning through glucose. I'm just sitting here, just sitting down, typing stuff up, doing calls. My heart rate is in the 90s. Just sitting there. Normally, and to give you a comparison, my resting heart rate is like 55. So if I was to just be sitting here and just reading something or whatever, or sipping some water or some tea, my resting heart rate would be like 55, 60, 65. I was sitting here, my heart rate was in the 90s. Okay? So hours, and this was all day long. My heart rate was elevated all day long. No caffeine. No caffeine. This is me completely uncaffeinated. Elevated heart rate all day long. Same thing today. I'm sitting here right now, and my heart rate was like it's like what, 78 in the 80s. Sometimes it's 86, sometimes 78, somewhere around there. Because I went to the gym today and I trained, but I didn't do legs, so it's not as demanding. Getting into the habit of training like this, essentially what happens is this is more nervous system training. So the resistance bands is training muscle groups locally, and the barbells, the conventional weights, is training my body in a much more holistic way. It's neck and toes, so to speak. You're training everything from your neck to your toes. Right? So it's much more demanding. Plus, like that feeling, that kind of borderline scary feeling that you have when you have a whole bunch of weight on your back, that's going to cause a lot more adrenaline release. And adrenaline is one of those things that's essential to optimizing fat metabolism. All right? Now, on a cellular level, when you train like that, your cells open up. Insulin sensitivity skyrockets. So if you train like that, and then you go and you eat food that's high in carbohydrates, let's say you're going to eat a bunch of fruit, you train like that. So I trained hard, hit legs, went home, and ate a whole cantaloupe. And I did that on the stream. I was actually streaming on TikTok, and I was sitting on TikTok chatting with folks, and I'm cutting up the cantaloupe and all of that type of stuff. I was on for a while, and I ate a whole cantaloupe. And your cells just suck up all this glucose like nothing. So what happens is your blood sugar doesn't really elevate to any significant degree because of that. The interesting thing too is the fact that right after the workout, your blood sugar levels will dip real low and then rebound back upward. So your blood sugar levels may be even slightly elevated, like right above 110 or something like that, and coast like that. Or be around 100 or whatever the case is. It depends on how stressed you feel. Because of the adrenaline, because the adrenaline release happens after the workout, and it continues. The only thing that's really going to bring the blood sugar levels back down is when you eat, right? Because when you eat, it brings your body out of the danger zone. You fill up your glycogen stores with the carbohydrates from the food. Your body goes, all right, I can chill, right? And then that's when things kind of calm down a little bit. That elevated heart rate thing, that's an adrenal response from the intensity of the training and the workout. This is why the workout, the resistance training and stuff is so important. Because all of this madness that your body goes through during training, even leading up to training and then afterwards, there's a massive benefit to doing that. You take your body up real high and you come back down, and your body gears up and makes improvements and adjustments in anticipation that you're going to do that again. So when I train like that, next Friday, it's not going to be as intense as it was the first time, because now my body's adjusted a little bit more to that. My body's ready for it. So every Friday that I do that workout, my body's going to adapt to it a little bit more. So then I'll be less wobbly, I'll be able to do more reps and all of that type of stuff. And there's incremental improvements every week from doing the same workout over and over and over each time. If I deviate from that workout, I may not see the benefits. This is the reason why when you do a particular workout, do it again on that day every week. You establish a pattern and do not deviate from it at all, right? Because if you deviate, your body's going to have to adjust to a new stimulus and abandon the old one. That's why you don't want to deviate too much. Your body, it makes improvements and adapts in anticipation that you're going to do that thing again. That's how the human body is designed to prepare, grow this, repair that, improve this, change that, in anticipation to get ready for the second time it happens. And this is the basis for how we as human beings evolve. This is why we grow, in anticipation. The human body is always adjusting to what it thinks is going to happen. Okay? This is why fight or flight even exists in the first place, right? Where you can fear is not like a response that your body has when something is happening to you. Fear and that burst of adrenaline, that fight or flight mode, is a response that your body creates in anticipation of something happening. Your body, whatever response that your body creates, it's not responding to something that is happening or already happened. It's a response of anticipation of something happening in the future. This is why when people talk about, oh, you got to train this way and confuse the body. You cannot confuse the body. That's not how that works. Because your body is always a step ahead of you, or several steps ahead of you. Your body, because your body is anticipating all the time. So like, for example, if you're ever walking up the stairs and you feel like you're going to miss a step, that nervous feeling, you didn't miss a step, but you feel like you're going to miss a step. So your heart rate kind of races a little bit. And you look down, you look at your feet like, am I going to trip? That's what that is. It's not a confusion. It's a, hold on 1 second, hold on. We might be messing something up here. And your body will stop you. Stiffness. If you have a tight muscle, your body is purposely inhibiting the range of motion in that particular joint in the anticipation that if you increase the movement, you're going to tear the muscle. So it's going to lock it up beforehand to prevent a tear. So your parasympathetic nervous system, which is the subconscious nervous system, makes all of these adjustments in anticipation of stuff before you realize what's happening. It's very important. This is a fundamental rule to understand how to improve the human body. So like, for example, if I create a plan for somebody to reverse type 2 diabetes, my goal is not to avoid a blood sugar spike. My goal is to provoke the body to create an adaptation to improve their insulin sensitivity in the future. There's a big difference that people don't talk about. Do you want to just avoid blood sugar spikes because you're insulin resistant, or do you want to improve insulin sensitivity? You have a choice. Now, there's a gradient. There's like a sliding scale, which one you prefer. You can major in improving insulin sensitivity and minor in avoiding blood sugar spikes. Or you can major in avoiding blood sugar spikes and minor in improving insulin sensitivity. So there's a scale of what you want to prioritize. For me, I'm like, all right, let's major in reversing insulin sensitivity. And if we get a little bit of a blood sugar spike, that's fine. It's a fair trade-off. Because tomorrow, you're going to be more insulin sensitive. Next week, you're going to be more insulin sensitive than that. A month from now, 3 months from now, 6 months from now, you're not going to be type 2 diabetic at all. That's my line of reasoning. That's the goal. So I'm thinking more long term. If you notice, with my mindset, it's all about strategy. Logistics, strategy, execution, racing across the finish line. All right, that's my thought process. Let me catch up to y'all in these comments here. Let's take a look. Take a look at what we got going on. We got a few comments here. That makes sense when you explain it that way. True. D after 50, insulin sensitivity improvement. That's right. Yeah. Let's see. It seems like it would make more sense to use the bands if you're not used to conventional weights. I think I think the resistance bands is a good way to teach you how to use your muscles. And then the conventional weights is the thing you can add on afterwards. Right? Oh, and by the way, you guys, you put your questions in the comments, and I can pick those up and start answering a few of those. All right? Now, in closing, all right, in closing, here we go. In closing, if I were to say, well, which way of training is better? Conventional weights or resistance bands? Which one is better? Well, I wouldn't necessarily say just one is solidly better than the other. I would say that it depends on what your goals are. If your goal is to target and grow a muscle at a time, resistance bands. If your goal is to target and grow a muscle as safely as possible, resistance bands. If your goal is to maximize raw strength in a compound movement fashion, conventional weights. If I want to win a powerlifting competition, if I want to win an Olympic weightlifting competition, if I want to bench press as much weight as I can, if I want to deadlift and squat as much weight as I can, if I want to put as much weight over my head as I possibly can, conventional weights is going to be a thing I'm going to have to use to build like raw overall strength. So if I'm training to pick a person up and put them over my head, I'm going to have to use conventional weights. I would use resistance bands along with it. I think for me personally, from this point forward, I am always going to work resistance bands into my training, whether I'm using conventional weights or not. Always. The resistance bands are here to stay. And the reason for that is because if I'm training to lift a person over my head, people are not stagnant weight. People are not like barbells. It's a lot harder to pick up a person than it is to pick up a dead weight. Even when a person just flop and you try to pick them up, it's a lot harder to pick up a person who's just flopping around than it is to pick up like a rigid, solid weight. Right? Because picking up a person, if that person is like flopping around and whatnot, your body can't adapt to kind of picking them up because you're fumbling them, you're fumbling them while picking them up and all of this. And it's a whole different skill set on its own. However, resistance bands train you to pull in real time against something that's pulling against you. And so the thing is, if you wanted to produce, let's say if you were training for speed, I want to throw a punch as fast as I can. I want to move my arm in a particular direction. I want to jump higher. I'm training resistance bands. Because resistance bands teach you or train your body to produce power. Okay? So strength is how much weight you can use. Power is how fast you can move the weight. So if you're training to be more athletic, you're training to be faster, a better sprinter, a higher jumper, a better boxer, whatever the case is, resistance bands, 100%. You want to be explosive? Boom! Resistance bands. All right? Now, conventional weights, let's say, and this is probably more for men. Because men, if you want like to have like a burly, solid, masculine physique, conventional weights are good for doing that. Because conventional weights actually build up the size of your neck and all this stuff. Right? So like my traps, if you notice, so like with my traps, you see this here? How my traps look? My traps look like that, right? From conventional weights. Okay, my traps actually look kind of stupid. Okay? So even look, my shoulder is just like I don't have a neck. Right? That's from conventional weights, from years of putting weight on my traps and them digging into my traps and pulling up all type of heavy weight and doing rows with several 100 pounds and all of this, jerking around with this really heavy weight. Men have this massive capacity for just grow overall body mass because of testosterone. So it'll show up in your shoulders, it'll show up in your neck. See, this is why even now it looks like I don't have a neck on camera right now. I got to do it like this just to look like I have a neck. And these are androgen receptors. Men have a lot more androgen receptors in their neck, right? So like a man can grow his neck much faster than a woman can. People call it the yoke. So if you see, I posted pictures of videos of my back and it looked like a turtle shell because I have all these androgen receptors in my back, so my back looks ridiculous. I'm not like a huge person. I'm really not. But it could look like, I can look like that in pictures because of the musculature, right? So my traps and my back and all this type of stuff look ridiculous, but in large part from conventional weights, because you'll see guys who are muscular, but they don't have a back like mine. I'm not bragging, I'm just saying. I have a long background in conventional weightlifting, powerlifting, that type of thing. And it's very back intensive. So a lot of it is going to train your lower back, your mid back, your upper back, your grip, and all of this type of stuff. So for me, genetically, I'm genetically predisposed to building my neck and my back. Those are going to be the most dominant things on my body and my glutes, right? So for me, the things that I have the easiest time growing are my glutes and my back and my neck, right? Just for me personally. I wish I had more of a predisposition to grow shoulders. I don't really have that, or forearms. Right, that's a whole nother thing. You know, genetics is a thing that factors in. So that's the deal there. So I would say it depends on the goal for conventional weights. If you're just trying to build muscle and get in shape, resistance bands good enough. If there's any other kind of questions before I move on to the next thing that I wanted to talk about, leave it in the comments. I'll talk about it. I'll give y'all some moments. By the way, folks, hit the like button. You know what I'm saying? So it's a few of y'all in here. Hit that like button to like the stream. YouTube likes that, and the channel been killing it lately, especially from that last video that I dropped a few days ago. I'm about to get into supplementation. There we go. Forever faithful unto him, aka my happy healthing, aka the first lady of Tribe by Noire. What's going on? Good to see you, beautiful. Coming through, great info. You know what I'm saying? Trying to deliver the best. So getting on to supplementation. All right. There's a lot of different gimmicks and supplements on the market. And people tell you, oh, this will improve muscle and all of this. There's not really specifically a supplement that is going to grow your muscle mass. There are no supplements that specifically grow muscle mass in and of themselves. There are no supplements that do that. Anybody who tells you this supplement is going to grow your muscle mass, they're lying. There is no supplement that does that. The only thing that grows muscle mass is training the body and fueling the body. Training muscle and fueling it. That's it. The only way you fuel it, primarily, is food. However, supplementation works peripherally to create conditions that maximize stimulation and infrastructure. Here's what I mean about that. There are certain things that you can change in your body that influence better muscle performance, better athletic performance, and recovery. When it comes to any supplement you take, they should improve oxygen, blood flow, and recovery. Okay? Any supplement you take should improve metabolic conversion of glucose into energy. So any supplement you take should be geared towards vasodilation, right? So meaning the dilation of blood vessels to pass more blood flow, because when you pass more blood flow, that's more nutrients to your muscle tissue, that's more nutrients and oxygen to your muscle tissue, that's more oxygen to your brain, that's more oxygen and nutrients to your nervous system. This creates better mental health, mental focus. This creates more emotional clarity and stability. This creates stronger, more intense muscle contractions. This causes better training performance. This heightens adrenal function, liver function, mitochondrial function, kidney function, thyroid function, straight across the board, pituitary function. But these are peripheral things. This isn't muscle specific. This is these are things that influence how your muscles work from the sidelines. All right? So it's important to know that on a fundamental basis. So in order to contract a muscle, you need things like calcium, you need glucose, glycogen, which glycogen is basically stored glucose, right? Once glucose is stored inside cells and those individual glucose molecules are paired together and chain linked together, that's called glycogen, all right? So they get linked up together inside a cell, and then they get converted into ATP through your mitochondria. But the thing with that process is there has to be oxygen uptake, right? Because oxygen is the basis for thermogenic energy. No oxygen, no heat. No thermogenesis, no metabolism. Period. 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 End of story, right? So you have two categories of stimulation and exercise, aerobic and anaerobic. Aerobic implies that it's low intensity, low effort, it's sustained long term, but there's an adequate level of oxygen available to continuously burn for energy, to keep the body in motion. That's what's called aerobic. So this would be jogging, this could be boat rowing, any exercise that is sustained for several minutes. Okay, what is anaerobic? Anaerobic is very short-term bursts of effort. Very short-term. We're talking like a maximum of like 9 to 10 seconds. All right, that's like anaerobic, very short-term. If you're a runner and you wanted to run and you wanted to sprint as hard as you can, as fast as you can, you wanted to get from point A to point B as fast as humanly possible, you have 10 seconds to do it. 10 seconds. You have 10 seconds to meet your maximum speed. So you run 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You can reach your top speed in the first few seconds, and then you're slowing down after that. As soon as you hit your top speed, you can sustain it for a couple seconds, and then you start tailoring off. Very short term. And the reason for that is because by the time you hit that top speed, you no longer have any oxygen left for your body to use to convert glucose into ATP for energy. It's anaerobic. You just run out of oxygen. You literally, in order to get more oxygen, you have to stop, catch your breath. And catch your breath, I mean fill your lungs with oxygen. That oxygen is then used to convert that stored glycogen into ATP so that you can then put more effort forward. But max effort depletes oxygen rapidly, and then there's no more basis for ATP conversion. That's it, you're shot. The only way you're gonna get more energy is you have to stop. That's the name of the game with that, right? So let's move on to creatine. Creatine is made from 3 amino acids: methionine, histamine, cysteine. Right? I think those are the 3, if I'm not mistaken. Right? Methionine, histamine, cysteine. It's those 3, I believe. It's water soluble. Now, the interesting thing is creatine, your body makes like 1 gram of creatine per day. And this is tightly regulated on purpose, okay? Because that's like a sustainable effort. But your body makes 1 gram of your body makes 1 gram of creatine per day from the protein you consume. You consume protein, right? Proteins break down into various other amino acids, like the 3 that I mentioned. It pairs them up together and create the creatine. It makes 1 gram of it per day. All right. And that creatine is then used to create muscular contractions for all of the lean tissue in your body. That creatine is then expended, and the byproduct of that creatine is creatinine that has to be filtered through your kidneys. This is relevant to you if you have kidney disease. If your creatinine level is really high, that means that your kidneys are having a hard time filtering out or recycling and creating more creatine, right? Because like your kidneys create hormones, your kidneys will take certain acids and then convert it into alkaline substances to refeed back into your metabolic processes or excrete toxins. Your kidneys do all types of stuff, right? So does your liver. And your liver and your kidneys kind of work, they have this close relationship where they work with each other. Now, if you take creatine, daily recommendation is 5 grams a day. You may say, well, taking creatine, wouldn't that be bad? Wouldn't that be harsh on your kidneys? And the answer is maybe, but not necessarily. But if, let's say somebody came to me and they had kidney disease, would I tell them to supplement with creatine? No. Because they have a traffic jam. I'm not going to put more creatine in because because their body's struggling to expel that excess creatinine in the first place. So no. But let's assume this is a normal person, the kidneys work just fine. You take that 5 grams of creatine, and essentially what happens is you bolster your body's creatine storage, and now that creatine will be sent to your brain and all of your lean muscle mass. And it'll be stored inside your lean muscle mass. Right? But 5 grams is not enough to get complete creatine storage. You need a lot more than 5 grams. Right? You can actually do 10 grams a day. Some people even go nuts with it. They do like 25 grams a day. That's a little bit extreme for me to be like, I'm gonna do 25 grams a day, 7 days to load up creatine. I mean, you can do that if you want. I'm not doing that. I'm not a big fan of loading up like that high on stuff. I don't want to do that. If I got to load 5 grams at a time and just have this loading phase come over a longer period of time, I'm fine with that. I'd rather stretch it out. I don't want to be cramming and doing all of that. I'm conservative in my approach with things. I don't really do anything extreme. So 5 grams a day, gradually loading that creatine into your lean mass, sending it to your brain, etc. This has an accumulative effect where this will improve muscle function, blood pressure, liver function, brain chemistry, emotional health, learning capacity. There are studies that show that creatine reduces Alzheimer's or prevents Alzheimer's, protects against Alzheimer's or neurodegenerative diseases, right? And apparently the mechanism behind that is creatine improves the conversion in your cells, in your mitochondria, of ATP, which is also needed for your brain, right? So you get more ATP conversion, which means that you get better insulin sensitivity because of how traffic works. So in the cell, you got glucose in the cell stored as glycogen, and then out comes the ATP that's then used for energy. And then you use the ATP, it converts into ADP, picks up another phosphate, and then boom, it's ATP again. So when that process has a more efficient turnover, that cell is going to be a lot more receptive to taking in new glucose and taking in new glucose more frequently. That process is aided by creatine. So creatine actually boosts the traffic on a cellular level. And this has major benefits, not just in all of the lean cells in your body, but this also converts in your brain. Because when you improve the traffic flow throughout your body, this has a residual effect that passes on to brain function. All right? And this also improves liver function. The reason why this improves liver function is because now, let's say you're accumulating a little too much fat inside your liver. Well, if you have better glucose uptake and more insulin sensitivity, this causes your blood sugar level to drop more frequently, which causes your liver to then oxidize fat stored in the liver and then kick that glucose out into your bloodstream to then be sucked up by the rest of your cells in your body. So that improves the traffic of stored fat from your liver converted into glucose and then sucked up into your cells for energy. And so now, if you have improved traffic, improved insulin sensitivity, improved ATP conversion, improved glycogen storage, this leads to better brain chemistry and better brain health, because you know what eases the mind, you know what makes us feel happy, you know what brings us joy, you know what comforts us? Less traffic. Oh, we love it. Insulin sensitivity is like driving on the freeway at 2 o'clock in the morning. Wide open lanes. Wide open. Right? And in the freeway, it's lit real well. You can see everything clearly for miles. No traffic. Right? You can go into cruise control, just sit back. Matter of fact, it's like driving at 2 o'clock in the morning on the freeway in a Tesla that drives itself. At that point, it's sightseeing. And man, is it a wonderful experience. Now imagine your life is just like that all the time because your metabolism is optimized. This is one of the benefits of creatine. Now, if you got better traffic, that means that you don't have to be riding your brakes like you do in traffic, right? In traffic, you'd be riding your brakes. Everybody riding their brakes, right? Riding the brakes, riding the brakes. Right? Your foot's kind of on the brakes, but it's not so much, and you're not really stepping on the gas. You're kind of just stepping on the gas a little bit, just so you can kind of move a little bit forward, but you gotta ride the brakes, and it's just kind of slow, kind of inching up, and you know, all this type, and it's tedious, and it's cumbersome, and it's just somebody's red taillights blaring in your face, right? On, off, constantly, right? And it's annoying. You're sitting there. It's not moving. It's just gumming up the works. When you're training in the gym, that traffic jam feels like fatigue, okay? And when you feel fatigue, this eats into your mental capacity to be focused on doing what you're doing, right? It eats away at your motivation, because if you don't think clearly, if you don't have mental alertness, if you don't have focus, guess what? You're not motivated, and you don't even want to be doing the workouts at all. It's kind of like nobody wants to drive in traffic in the same way that nobody wants to go and work out when they're crazy, fatigued, and miserable. That's why you need to improve that traffic, and now substitute the word traffic for metabolism. Creatine is a mechanism that filters nutrients into your muscle tissue, fills the muscle tissue up with all types of resources, right? To produce visceral, violent contractions that really move force. These are drivers, mechanical drivers, right? You're like a solid horse-powered machine when the muscle is full and well-powered. Now, if you've been cutting your carbs, you barely eat, you're dehydrated, and your stored creatine levels are low, guess what? You ain't gonna be able to go in the gym. You're gonna feel fatigued, tired, exhausted, out of breath. It's not gonna be a good feeling. It's like driving on E, right? And you're driving a beater. That's what it feels like. So creatine helps in that whole aspect, right? So it bleeds over to mental function, brain chemistry, emotional health, etc. And this carries over to whether you're reading a book, whether you're reading a blog post, whether you're writing an article, whether you're doing SEO, whether you're sending emails to all the staff, coordinating meetings, whatever the case is, doesn't really particularly matter. Whether you're eating, doesn't matter. That creatine has all of these residual effects that affect you all day long. So not only is it beneficial to your training and your metabolism, but it's beneficial to every action in your life moving forward, as well as longevity. All right. So that creatine is number one. Number two, citrulline malate. Citrulline malate is a precursor that your body then uses to create arginine. Arginine is then used in your body to create nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is what dilates your vascular system. All right? That nitric oxide dilating your vascular system allows more blood flow. More blood flow means more nutrients and more oxygen to every area of your body. More nutrients and more oxygen to your muscle tissue and to your brain leads to better training performance, better muscular contractions, better hormonal balance and release, better adrenal function, better recovery. Citrulline malate is a combination of an amino acid called citrulline and malic acid. Okay? You can actually get citrulline from natural sources like cucumber, beets, watermelon, for example. Those naturally contain citrulline. This is why watermelon, if you got like high blood pressure, you got circulatory issues, cucumber, watermelon, and by the way, cucumber and watermelon are in the same family. Right? It's like ginger and turmeric. They're in the same family, right? So watermelon, cucumber, good combination. And then beets, very good, right? Anything with that red pigmentation or a deep green pigmentation, very good for blood flow, all right? So eat the colors, red, green, all right? Red for blood flow, green for go. I would say those are the colors. So this citrulline malate, you can do 3 to 6 grams per day, right? I prefer to do 3 grams twice a day, accumulating to be 6. I like to do water with 5 grams of creatine and 3 grams of citrulline combined together about an hour or so before my workout. Both of these work together to maximize ATP and blood flow. Nice stack. It's a good combination. I like it. Citrulline is also very beneficial for purging excess levels of ammonia. So let's say you're on a high protein diet. High protein diet leads to more ammonia because ammonia is a byproduct of the breakdown of proteins into the amino acids, which is very acidic. Okay? So then what happens is your kidneys have to kick in and they have to balance out the acid accumulation in your blood as a result of the extra amino acids. High protein means high levels of amino acids. You got high levels of amino acids, that's gonna lower your pH levels and make you more acidic. This is the reason why some of the most medicinal diets on the planet are typically low in protein. Right? So if you've got some type of acute chronic illness, one of the best things that you can do is have a very alkalizing cleanse, like cucumber, watermelon, perfect combination. You just eat cucumber and watermelon all day. Right? Because it's alkalizing, so it makes it so healing, maximizes oxygen absorption. Phenomenal. If you want to compound on top of that for chronic illness, I'm not going to get too deep, but watermelon, cucumber, burdock root, bladderwrack, sea moss. That'll dig you out of that acid hole, right? Clear out all that mucus and crustiness and all of this type of stuff. Get better oxygen, blood flow. You start feeling better, sleeping deeper, and all this type of stuff, right? But that's for another talk. So citrulline malate helps your kidneys deal with the ammonia. All right, so that citrulline, and the reason why this is important too, when you work out, you train a muscle, you're training for hypertrophy. When you work a muscle, you know that burning sensation? That burning sensation is acid. Lactic acid, for example. Byproduct of energy expenditure, that burning sensation, the accumulation of acid, and that acid has to be converted metabolically into an alkaline substance combined with oxygen that facilitates the ADP conversion into ATP so that you can get more muscular contractions. That's why when you feel the burn, you start to feel the numbness if you keep going, and then you're forced to stop. And then you have to catch that breath, fill up with oxygen and whatnot, so that that muscle can wake back up and you generate that ATP. This is why muscular training typically is done in sets. You do one long set, you just burn, you maximize that lactic acid, and then eventually the muscle shuts off. It can't fire anymore. There's no more ATP. It's done. It's cooked, right? So the citrulline malate, it works to flush acid out of the muscle tissue, as well as keeping it from accumulating in your joint tissue. So joint soreness and muscle fatigue and muscle soreness, like for example, delayed onset muscle soreness, DOMS, right? There's soreness that you feel post-workout. There's citrulline malate, that malic acid in particular helps with that. So that malic acid helps helps with the soreness and improves recovery. All right? A lot of different benefits. Good for your liver, good for your kidneys, vascular health, muscular contraction, muscle growth, improvement, and recovery. Beta-alanine, number 3. Beta-alanine, all right, is one of my favorites. And you can do 3 grams of beta-alanine a day, for example, on top of the 3 grams of the citrulline malate, the 5 grams of creatine, monohydrate. And you can put all 3 of those into about 12 ounces of water, 16 ounces of water, and drink that down an hour before your workout, and all of those things work together. Now, beta-alanine is very interesting because it opens up your blood capillaries and also acts as a vasodilator, right? But it's this thing that supercharges nervous system and cellular responsiveness, right? It makes your cells responsive, right? It improves insulin sensitivity as well as dilate your vascular system. It supercharges nervous system functionality and response, and it allows you to train harder and longer by improving energy conversion. And beta-alanine kind of blunts the effects of fatigue. Creatine monohydrate, citrulline malate, and beta-alanine all collectively work together to reduce muscular fatigue and improve ATP conversion. That's what all these things have in common. Lighten up traffic, better conversion, which means better training performance, better recovery, right? So these are like pre-workout things. Now, what I like to do is, along with, I told you about the citrulline malate, the 3 grams, the second time a day. I like to do 3 grams of beta-alanine a second time a day combined with the citrulline malate, usually at night or something like that, around bedtime, like in the evening, long after I stopped eating. Well, not long after, but like a couple hours after I've stopped eating. So for example, before I got on this stream, like around maybe 7:30 or so, I drink that combination. And you see, I'm coming on the stream right now. I'm super alert. I'm fired up. My brain is just recalling all types of stuff. My nervous system, my brain function, we're on point, okay? I'm on Navy SEAL mode right now. No caffeine, by the way. None of this is caffeine. So it's not a stimulant that kicks your adrenal glands and just start releasing all kind of adrenaline because you spike with all this caffeine. So you don't generate this resistance to it. This is why I like it. It's more sustainable. You don't develop a tolerance to it to the point where it stops working. Another reason why I like these things. So I didn't mention caffeine on this list. Now, caffeine is very effectively broadly, but I'm not really a big fan of taking caffeine as a supplement. You can get caffeine naturally from like green tea, but I wouldn't say to supplement with green tea. That's why I didn't mention it. But these 3, okay, they have all these peripheral effects that improve training and recovery, blood flow and all that, which leads to muscle gain. Right, so muscle gain is more of like a side effect, but they're still effective, right? Because they create the conditions for muscle growth driving, right? Hypertrophy, which just means enlargement. It's a scientific term. Growth. Now, there are 2 more or 1 more. I'm not going to do the 2. I'll just do 1. Nah, I'm going to do 2. I changed my mind. Supplementing. There's 2 different types of form of magnesium that I like to supplement for. And this specifically, these aren't pre-workouts. This is more post-workout. Magnesium malate and magnesium glycinate. We'll start with magnesium malate. Malate implies the malic acid that I mentioned about the citrulline malate. Magnesium malate is great post-workout. So when you're done with your workout, you're shot, you come home, you're sweaty, you get the twitchy muscle fibers, you got the low blood sugar, all this type of stuff. You went hard with your workout, right? But you feel good, you feel refreshed, right? Magnesium malate, 2 grams. 2 grams of magnesium malate post-workout. That aids in muscle recovery. Now, I'm going to talk about magnesium a little bit, and this is a real big deal. This is extremely important, especially for bone health, insulin sensitivity, liver function, kidneys, bone health, all this stuff, right? Magnesium is involved in all these things. But this magnesium malate, and the reason why it's such a big deal is because this magnesium malate gets shuttled right into the muscle tissue in your bone mass. So this becomes protective for your joints. So this then is used to reinforce your cartilage in your joints, your tendons, your ligaments, your bones, bone marrow, improve calcium absorption from your food, muscle growth, all this type of stuff, because magnesium is anabolic, which means magnesium creates growth. Specifically, growth of bone density and muscle tissue. Magnesium is alkalizing, which means, remember the acid thing that I mentioned? I don't know why I just did acid, because it's not why I do scare quotes. Acid, right? So this magnesium aids in recovery because it helps to alkalize your body. And the thing is that your body's always fighting this perpetual battle of balancing acid and alkaline. You can't be too alkaline, but you can't be too acidic. The problem is exercise inherently lowers your pH level, and your body has this snapback response where you suck up all this oxygen and brings your pH level back up, right? Magnesium helps with maintaining homeostasis. So you don't go through this rapidly acid, alkaline rapidly. You don't go through these massive swings, okay? So it keeps you perpetually kind of alkalized where you're around that 7.4 or so on the pH scale, right? So better joint health, better bone health, better muscle function. So, you know, like those weird twitches and cramps and all of that type of stuff. Had I not slacked off of my magnesium malate, I wouldn't have that vicious friggin' abdominal cramp that I had on Friday. So if you want to prevent yourself from having any potential debilitating muscle cramps, that magnesium would definitely help with that. Magnesium supplementation, I suggest almost straight across the board for people generally. And the reason for that is because most people with metabolic disorders, I think almost everyone with a metabolic disorder is hypomagnesemia, right? They have hypomagnesemia, meaning deficient in magnesium. Now, magnesium deficiency goes largely undetected, even though the official numbers is like 40% of people are magnesium deficient, which is extremely high. But I think that that's underreported because magnesium deficiency is actually very difficult to detect because most magnesium is stored inside your bone and muscle tissue, and that's not picked up in blood tests. If you do a blood test to measure blood magnesium levels, it's not going to tell you how much magnesium is stored inside muscle and bone tissue. On top of that, there are things that inhibit magnesium absorption and things that they bleed your body of magnesium. Here's an example. Too much calcium in your diet bleeds your body of magnesium because calcium, in order for calcium to be absorbed, it needs magnesium for that absorption. So your body has to pull calcium from somewhere to piggyback with the magnesium. I'm sorry, your body has to pull calcium from somewhere to shuttle your body has to pull calcium. No, it has to pull magnesium from somewhere to shuttle into calcium. Excuse me, I'm talking about excess calcium. So calcium and magnesium has this codependent relationship where they have to ride with each other into your cells. So like if you go to like a GNC or something like that, you'll see like calcium plus magnesium, right? Because you're not really supposed to supplement with calcium by itself. You're not really supposed to do that. Because you don't want just calcium just floating around in your blood. You don't really want that, right? Because that calcium, excess calcium can then bind to cholesterol, lipoproteins, things of this nature, and then can potentially form atherosclerotic plaque. Too much calcium can also cause bone spurs, this type of things. Problematic. Kidney stones, gallstones, all this type of stuff. You don't want that. Excess calcium and sodium together, right, used to create stones. You don't want that. Excess cholesterol paired with calcium, right? Atherosclerotic plaque, things like this, you don't want that. So you don't need a whole lot of calcium, but you do need the magnesium. Calcium isn't really particularly water soluble, not conventionally. Magnesium, for the most part, is water soluble, right? So calcium can get embedded in your tissues and whatnot and stay in your body a lot longer. Magnesium, not necessarily. Magnesium can be stored in your body typically 18, 24 hours. For some people, it may even be 12 hours. It depends on your diet and lifestyle. So supplementing with magnesium is very beneficial. Our water is desalinated, which means any potential magnesium that is naturally in our water is then pulled from our water. So we get this sterilized, desalinated water with no mineral balance whatsoever in the water. All right, so magnesium is supposed to be in all your foods, it's supposed to be in your water, all of this type of stuff, and that's not the case for us. So it makes it even easier for people to generate a magnesium deficiency. Saturated fat inhibits magnesium absorption in the intestines. So the more saturated fat you have in your diet, the more magnesium is then inhibited from being absorbed into your cells. This is deeply problematic, and this is one of the things that leads to insulin resistance and type 2 diabetes and fatty liver disease. It's one of the mechanisms for how that works. Because magnesium is necessary in order to create insulin sensitivity. That magnesium is needed to signal to your nervous system for your cells to open up and receive certain resources. If that magnesium is inhibited from the absorption as a result of the saturated fat, then that whole process is blocked, and you end up with a traffic jam over time. Cooking with oils, right? Inflammation causes your cells to be unreceptive to nutrients. This is the reason why if you have a fever, flu, or something like that, your vascular system constricts, you lose your appetite, everything shuts down, and your nervous system goes to work killing stuff. It's a lockdown mode. All right, lockdown, right? Like the whole pandemic lockdowns, it's like that. Shut it down, right? We got to defeat the enemy. So you can get away with sipping some soup, drinking some teas, but don't you dare think about eating anything heavy, because we will vomit, because this ain't the time for that. No working out, no doing all type of stuff. Sit down, let us go to work. We're going to raise the temperature. We're going to have you at 100+ degrees. We are cooking. We are going to burn to death whatever infection we got going on here. We're not playing around. This is how your immune system responds. Your immune system is no joke. The human immune system is violent as hell. Violent. The immune system is some vicious stuff. Right? You'll see what I'm talking about if you see your immune system going to work killing stuff under a microscope. It looks crazy. Where it just blobs, just going piercing and sucking up and destroying things. It's crazy, right? Little worms and stuff just getting torn up and whatnot. I mean, it's wild. Look at this stuff under a microscope. In any case, so inflammation causes your body to be very unreceptive to like most things. Magnesium, on the other hand, is a different story. Magnesium causes your cells to open up for specific things, like glucose. So if you have a blood sugar monitor and you measure your blood sugar, when you're inflamed, your blood sugar spikes. So if you have a glucose monitor and you get sick or you're going through some type of inflammation, you'll notice your blood sugar is excessively high. Even if you didn't eat anything, your blood sugar would be high. You're like, why is my blood sugar high? What's going on? Because your body is shutting down your appetite and it's burning fat at a rapid pace, and it's using oxygen at a rapid pace. And this is why your body slows you down. Your body slows you down so you're not doing stuff that's going to cut into your oxygen stores, because that oxygen is needed in combination with whatever fat and glucose to then create thermogenic energy, massive amounts of thermogenic energy to then raise your body temperature. So you could be sweating and freezing at the same time. And you feel like freezing because your body is trying to manipulate you, okay, in this kind of insidious fashion. Hey, let's raise your body temperature, but make you feel like you're freezing. Because we want you to put some blankets on. We want you to get close to a fire so that you can help us heat the body up. That's essentially what's happening, right? So you feel all cold and all this type of stuff, and you're shivering, and the shivering is making you generate more thermogenic energy, even though you feel cold. So you put all those blankets up into sweating and all this type of stuff, because the sweating is a way of detoxifying your body, flushing your lymphatic system while boiling your body practically from the inside out to kill off whatever. But that's an extreme degree. On a simple surface level, if you're a little inflamed, going through some inflammation, your blood sugar level will be high, your body temperature may be a little high, because your body's fighting something, that's why. When you're at homeostasis, though, then your blood sugar is beautiful, right? The magnesium helps you recover quicker. The magnesium helps your body get out of inflammation quicker. Magnesium is like inherently anti-inflammatory. So you get better muscle recovery, you get better sleep quality, you get better everything. You get better mental health and all of this type of stuff, emotional health, because magnesium supercharges the recovery process. And magnesium opens your cells up to receive the gifts of beautiful nutrition and recovery and oxygen and all this type of stuff. All right. Basically, magnesium, like, how would I describe this? Magnesium is like having a doorman that meets with the Amazon driver to accept the delivery and sign for whatever they got to sign for, and then bring it up to your apartment. That's what kind of magnesium is like. For men with low testosterone, high blood pressure, erectile dysfunction, magnesium is mandatory, because magnesium will help to reverse all of that, as well as improve training performance because of improved recovery. So magnesium glycinate. Magnesium glycinate almost acts as an antidepressant because of the glycine. Magnesium in and of itself improves brain chemistry and works as an antidepressant. Glycine also works as an antidepressant. Right? So glycine is an amino acid. You can take it by itself too, but it's good to pair with magnesium and magnesium and glycine. You get them together in a chelated fashion. And this improves brain chemistry. And one of the best things that you can do to get to your ideal weight, burn body fat, build muscle, improve training performance is combining these two in a chelated form as a supplement. And you can do about 2 grams a day. One thing you could do is you take 1 gram in the morning. You take the magnesium malate, 2 grams post-workout, and then you take another gram of magnesium malate before bed. That totals 4 grams of elemental magnesium. Not 4 grams of elemental magnesium. 400 milligrams, excuse me. Out of all the grams, most of that is that amino acid, the malic acid and the glycine. I think like only 12 to 18% is actually magnesium. So I got to be specific about my words. I don't want to say anything that's not true. So yeah, roughly it's going to be like that 12 or 18%, somewhere around there, is going to be magnesium. The threshold, the floor, not the threshold, the floor, the minimum amount of magnesium you should be getting a day is like 420 milligrams. If you do the 1 gram of magnesium glycinate in the morning, you do the other gram of magnesium glycinate at night, and then in the middle of the day after the workout, you do the 2 grams of magnesium malate. That's a total of 400 milligrams, roughly. 420, somewhere around there, depending on what supplement you take. And then the magnesium from your food, all the bananas and mango and all this type of stuff, in addition, that raise your magnesium even more. Pumpkin seed kernels, chia seeds, etc., that raise your magnesium even more. And this is how you accumulate that magnesium inside your muscle tissue and your bones, and you get much healthier bone marrow, more dense bones, and better, more solid muscle growth, better recovery, mental health, etc. This is how I've been able to consistently get people off of anxiety and depression medication. Works much better than, what's that called? Melatonin. I don't ever advise people to supplement with melatonin. I would rather you have a serotonin-rich diet, but essentially having foods that are rich in tryptophan, like bananas, mangoes, papaya, things like this that you can eat in your diet, and those are rich in tryptophan. Peanuts, almonds, pumpkin seed kernels, those are also rich in tryptophan. And tryptophan is the precursor for serotonin. Serotonin in your gut leads to serotonin synthesis in your brain, and a portion of that is then converted into melatonin to help you get into a deep sleep at night. All right. You can supplement with tryptophan if you want to get better quality sleep, but I wouldn't take melatonin. I generally advise against that. Melatonin can be beneficial, but the thing is I want to mitigate risk. So if you have a risk of taking melatonin and then having night sweats and having nightmares in your sleep at night, you don't want to experience that. And so if melatonin makes you experience that, take a safer route, and that's typically going to be like a tryptophan or magnesium glycinate, that kind of thing. Let me catch up. Let's see here in the comments. Let's catch up. How we doing? How are we doing? Am I going on too long? I'm going on kind of long, right? Yeah. Should you take it with dinner? I would say after dinner, like before bed usually. You don't need to take it with food necessarily. Is that why we are deficient in magnesium? Because it's water soluble? Yeah, there's a lot of different reasons, right? Added sugar depletes magnesium because magnesium is used as a currency for glucose uptake. Right? Magnesium is like a currency of life. So if you're eating a lot of processed foods that are high in added sugar, that's depleting magnesium. Excess saturated fat, that inhibits magnesium absorption. Alcohol consumption is one of the worst things you can possibly do, okay? Alcohol consumption causes vascular constriction, blood thinning, elevated blood pressure. It's inflammatory. It destroys liver cells. It destroys kidneys, thyroid, esophagus, stomach lining, increases risk of ulcers, kills beneficial gut bacteria, leads to insulin resistance, fatty liver disease, specifically alcoholic fatty liver disease. Yeah, I mean, one of the best things you can ever do in your life, I promise you, is avoid alcohol consumption, period, full stop. And then, of course, smoking of any kind. If you smoke marijuana, don't do that, all right? Marijuana may be medicinal. Smoke inhalation is not. It's deeply inflammatory. It'll lead to excess LDL, inflammation, oxidative stress to your vascular system, so you can actually have greater damage to your endothelium, which leads to atherosclerosis, elevated blood calcium level, all types of stuff. All right, I mean, deeply problematic. Destroys brain chemistry, reduces available oxygen, which can inhibit fat loss, cause accumulation of fat in your liver. I mean, it's just all types of stuff. Not good. No drinking, no smoking. And reduce that saturated fat intake as much as possible. All of your fat sources typically should be polyunsaturated and monounsaturated. Right? Last supplement, and then I'll let y'all go, all right, because I know it's getting late. Zinc. Zinc. Zinc is super important for adrenal function, healthy testosterone, muscle growth, maintenance of your immune system. Need it, absolutely need it. Zinc will rein in your immune system. It'll keep it from being underactive and overactive, right? Zinc, super beneficial, really important. Zinc is necessary for optimal levels of growth hormone, which is essential to building out your nervous system, muscle tissue, and bone density. All right. Zinc is also important for sleep quality because sleep brings down the temperature in your body, so to speak, right? So when I talk about the inflammation escalation ladder and I color code it, red, orange, yellow, green, you want to spend as much time in the green as possible. Green means good, no inflammation. Red means you're chronically inflamed to a severe degree, maybe even terminally. And this is where you're going to get activations of lupus, rheumatoid arthritis, all types of nastiness. All right? So get out of the red, get out of the orange, get into the green. Magnesium and zinc, great combination to help you do that. So hormonal balance, zinc, extremely important. And then zinc works very well with vitamin E and A, but you can get those things from your food, right? Food sources that are of yellow and orange pigmentation, sweet potato, butternut squash, mangoes, papaya, cantaloupe, these things like this are rich in beta carotene, which converts into vitamin A in the liver. Vitamin E you can get from kiwis, sunflower seeds, pumpkin seed kernels, papaya, mangoes, things like this, right? Chia seeds, flax seeds, hemp seeds, etc., right? And so vitamin A, E, combined with zinc are some of the backbone of your immune system, right, in your diet. You don't need to supplement with these things, right? I'm just giving additions to food. All right, so didn't want to be too long-winded about that, but zinc is an extremely beneficial and important mineral when it comes to hormonal balance, immune function, and lean mass generation. Period. All right, let me get my plugs in. If y'all got any questions, drop it in the chat. Let's see. Let me scroll up here a little bit. Okay, Gerard, seedless watermelon, all I can see, and I'm a little shook. Seedless watermelon is fine. I wouldn't worry particularly too much. If you want a seeded watermelon, one of the big tells is the weight of the watermelon. So if you really need seeds in your watermelon, the best thing that you can do is get a watermelon that is at least 20 pounds. All right, so you should be looking for a watermelon that's like 20 to 25 pounds. All right. Let's see. So I stick to cantaloupe, honeydew, etc. I know the seeds are healthy to eat, so why take them out? Thoughts? You can eat them if you want, but I mean, watermelon seeds, cantaloupe seeds, your gut doesn't really do a good job of pulling nutrients from these things, right? Because the cell wall and the fiber of the seeds pretty much prevent nutrients from being absorbed from the seeds in the intestines. All right, so that's the thing. You're not going to get a whole lot of nutrients out of the seeds. The seeds are actually meant to be planted to create new fruits, not really meant to be digested. Captain late, so we'll have to rewatch. Hitting the bell though. Okay, gotcha. Yeah, definitely. If you're not sub to the channel, definitely, yeah, sub to the channel too. All right, so real quick, this video will be up for replay, so you can watch it, right, if you tuned in late. There'll be a link in the description to book a call with me. There will also be a link in the description for my link tree where you can sign up for my newsletter. For those of you who are already on the newsletter, you would have got the invitation to this live stream tonight. And every Monday night, I go live on YouTube at 8 p.m. Eastern, so you're going to see that there. And there will also be links to sign up for personalized coaching or book a call or become a member, right? I specialize in muscle gain, weight loss, and most importantly, reversing chronic illnesses, improving your hormonal balance and your metabolism. All right? So I'm all about healing and maximizing longevity and using plant-based diet and lifestyle to do so. So that's my thing, right? So I am a high raw vegan nutritionist and fitness coach. For those of you who are new here to the stream and will be tuning in later. All right. So that's my time, y'all. We had a lot to get through here tonight. We're going on 2 hours. I'm gonna let y'all get to bed. So for those of you who haven't liked the stream, hit that like button, like the stream, and I will catch y'all on here next Monday night. Take care.